You have to build credibility in the relationship, and you have to make sure that the customer is able or ready to buy. So I think a structured approach in a sales training is very important very early on.
Sales, I believe, is just, selling a service or product, but there's so much more to it. Like, what skills help you to be an effective salesperson?
In the first 5 minutes, you really can't convince them of anything, let alone sell them anything. Just before I was done, actually, went to a company that made garbage compactors. I always tell everybody I went from the garbage can into the kitchen to get into the industry, because I really did. I work for a company called Handtmand Canada. We've got a daughter company in Waterloo. We've got 20 daughter companies around the world, headquartered in Biberach, Germany, which is in southern Germany between Stuttgart and Munich. And I've been working for this company for 12 years. I started off in the sales as a salesperson in a territory in Ontario, worked my way up to key accounts, which are our largest and most important customers. And now for the past 3 years, I've been sales manager. So managing the Canadian sales team of about 8 or 9 people.
Wow. So tell me a little bit more about, when we think about sales, we just think about, okay, I'm going to sell you a product, but I feel like that can even mean like a lot of different things about how someone approaches it. Walk me through a little bit more about like what that entails in terms of sales.
Yeah, I think sales is probably, the hardest profession in the world. There's a lot of preconceptions, and it really is, you're knocking on doors, and sometimes you get the doors slammed in your face. And I don't think that'll ever change. I think people just sometimes have a negative vibe and feelings. So I think first and foremost is really to break that down and have conversations. I teach my salespeople and people that I talk to that want to get into the profession to really just have conversations. I think it's the best way to get to where you want to go. And I think the first thing we always try to do as salespeople is find out what the problem is and see what the need is, and see if we have a fit. So a lot of talking about two business owners or two decision makers, either small, medium, or large, just about the business and building credibility. It's difficult to sell somebody anything or to convince somebody of anything unless you have that rapport and unless you have a bit of experience and you have that relationship. So in the first 5 minutes, you really can't convince them of anything, let alone sell them anything. So we really try to have conversations, get to know customers, and get to know what they're doing. And then at the end of the day, sometimes our equipment is not for them because they're doing something totally different. Many times, if we've done our homework and our research properly, then we are there for a reason, because we think that our equipment can do good for them, and we can have that customer have success with just like another customer similar to them. And that's why we're there, because we've done our research and we've seen that customers in this industry with this type of food or this type of product have had success with our machines. So ultimately, we're trying to convince them of that and show them that our machine will save them money or time or labor or all of the above. I think the one line I always say is selling ice to an Eskimo. And I think we've all heard that. And it's not good for the Eskimo, but it's also not good for us, because if we sell ice to an Eskimo, that Eskimo is not going to come back to us the next time. So it's really about building that relationship. So you build friendships and relationships. And I think the holy grail is when customers start to call you about products that you don't even sell or have to offer, because then they really value your opinion. And that's I think I personally have a lot of relationships that have turned into friendships with customers, and it's a really great feeling when somebody's looking for your expertise. You've gone to school, you've worked really hard, and you're trying to do what's best for your company as well as your customers. And when customers call you for your opinion, it's just a really great thing. And it starts to happen after a couple of years of being in the industry. Truly is a small world and small industries, and the food industry is small, and people move around, and you see people move from job to job. So reputation is always king as well. So that's what we're trying to do all day, every day as a salesperson.
Wow, I love that. And I'm definitely going to dive more into that, but I'm just taking a step back and just thinking about the listener and such. They might not be familiar with what type of processing equipment you work with, because again, very big range of that. You can have everything from, packaging equipment to the styles of, like, there's just so much. So just walk us through a little bit of the product lines. So just tell us a little bit more about the equipment and services that you provide.
Sure. So we focus on filling and portioning equipment. The company started in Biberach, Germany, 150 years ago, and we have a wonderful hall timeline that we take people through when they come through our office to show them the journey, which is really neat. Invite anybody to come into our office. But we've been focused on filling and portioning machines, and mostly for the meat industry. So if you need to make burgers, meatballs, sausages, or deposit foods into containers like salads, raw pet food right now is really, really hot as well. So things like that, accurate portioning is what we specialize in. We feel we have a really great machine with lots of innovations. We're the market leader and market innovator, all to focus on very accurate portioning. So you're not giving any product away because any giveaway is loss. So that headquarters is in Germany, and the 20 daughter companies around the world sell and service all of the equipment that comes out of Germany. So we've got offices in North America for Canada, which is Toronto Waterloo, um, Chicago in the US, Mexico, Colombia, Brazil. So those are the daughter companies that really do the same thing that we do and service each country or market.
Okay, that provides a little bit more clarification because, again, there's so many different types, but packaging is, there's like a whole, with food items, isn't it a little bit difficult because you have so many, size varieties. You have, there's a lot of companies that might switch between lines. Like it's not one car that just keeps going through the, well, I guess you don't package cars, but with food packaging, there's so many different levels and types and that. So you would really need to have like custom solutions for each of them.
Definitely. We've also noticed that it's not just, we've got into other equipment as well and other lines, but food is definitely probably one of the toughest things to automate. If you're just moving boxes around or electronic components or phones, they're always the same size, weight, and specification. But food changes. It changes. It's very sensitive to temperature, to moisture, to even the seasons. Uh, Food and bakeries have a huge problem with in the winter. They've got it cold outside temperature, and it affects the type of and quality of the food of the baked goods that they're making. So, really, day by day, food plants have that challenge of an inconsistent product, and we're trying to make it as consistent and portion it or make it as consistent as possible. So the customer always has the same experience that it's the same flavor, taste, properties every time they buy it.
And then as well, the equipment would have to, is it unique that like the equipment would get wet? Because I'm pretty sure like they have to do cleaning and such. So that adds another element that might make it difficult to design for a processing line.
Yeah, I think food equipment has to be some of the most robust equipment in the industry because it's washed every single day. Um, for food safety, for changeovers and cross contamination, for allergens. So it's not as robust as a submarine and can't be submerged in the ocean, but it has to last a long time. And to efficiently clean a piece of equipment, you want to use a bunch of water and a bunch of pressure as well. If you can visualize pressure washing your car, um, there's a lot of pressure there, and it that water really likes to go into or will find its way into electronics, and water and electricity don't mix.
Hmm.
So it's a big challenge to build a machinery that's as robust as possible to withstand cold temperatures or hot temperatures in bakery or meat production, as well as wash down every single day.
Let's imagine that I want to package my own raw pet food that maybe comes in like a tube. That's like the way I've seen it a lot of times. How would that process look like coming from, if I come to meet you, I come to talk to you, to right to when it gets put into the production facility? Would you be able to like walk through that process from where you stand and then maybe where your team members stand throughout that process?
Yeah, sure, I can try. There's a lot of stuff,
I know.
but it's an exciting journey. I mean, it's my most successful customer really started off all literally in their garage, and another successful customer was a dog breeder, and became and started making raw pet food because that's what the customers that were buying these dogs wanted to feed the same uh, raw pet food to these dogs. So they started to get into the dog food and raw dog food pet business. So really, I think it's difficult as a salesperson to find those people because if you're working out of your garage, you're not on the list. You're not.
That's true.
We're starting to use Instagram and Facebook Marketplace for finding people like this. So we would approach them. We would do some research as a salesperson on the road. We would like you to be on the road every day, 3 days a week at least, with a little bit of office time. And you're on the road researching and visiting customers. To make contact is an art as well. To get a meeting with somebody that might have a barrier up against salespeople. And then when you get that meeting, it's like I said in the beginning, just starting off the relationship and learning more about the business. Uh, to genuinely listen to the customer and see what their needs could be, see what their vision is, see if automation or some sort of better process is something that would help their business. Once it is, then we listen and we take that information, and we really have to think quickly. We've got brochures and we've got websites and collateral, it's called, and videos that we can show the customer, and we kind of try to match those needs and see what the customer's reaction is. After that, we'll come back for a couple of more meetings to define. Once we've mutually agreed that this is something that we both like to pursue, we'd come back for another meeting. Maybe we need to bring some expert in to help facilitate the sale, and we present to the customer. Typically, like anybody would present anything, could be on the shop floor, could be at a desk, could be in a boardroom, and we're presenting our solution, and we're trying to match our solution with what the needs are of the customer. There's no use. We could have the best machine in the world, but if it doesn't solve the problem that you have, then it's not worth it for you. So that's really what we're trying to do, is identify those needs. And once it looks like a viable project to the customer, they think that it'll meet their needs and they have budget for it because somebody's got to pay for it, then it's one of the most exciting times in a salesperson's day is when you do get that order or get that signature. It means that we're both going to proceed down this road, a partnership. We are going to promise what we're going to deliver what we promised, and the customer is going to pay us for it. So then could be a couple of weeks, or it could be a couple months later, depending on how long it takes to prepare the equipment. We, with our staff of service people, maybe an applications person who's an expert in this type of food, and the salesperson are there on the customer site, on the plant floor, moving in the equipment and making the equipment do what we all promised that it would do. We teach operators how to use the equipment. We teach mechanical and electrical maintenance people how to maintain the equipment, and we teach the sanitation people how to sanitize the equipment. And I think we used to stop there. A lot of companies do stop there, and I think the focus really is on making sure that after we leave, the customer is successful with our equipment, and that's I think something that I used to forget early on in my career is the after sales relationship, making sure that the equipment is maintained properly, making sure that when new operators come in, that they don't make any mistakes and create scrap or something like that, and make sure the equipment is not damaged and just lasts as long as it can. We build our equipment to be as robust and foolproof as possible, but it ages, so it needs to be maintained. So we'll have service people that come in after uh, regular intervals, just like your car. It's got to be maintained every certain number of months or kilometers. So does equipment. So we want to make sure that the customer is doing that as well. And we love to, hear of customers. We just sold to a customer last month that it was their fourth machine, a small producer in rural southwestern Ontario, but it was his fourth machine from us, and probably his last because he was going to retire. But really love those types of stories. We've known this customer for a long time, and he's been very loyal to us, and he's very enjoyed our equipment, and it's done very good for him. And he's seen four generations almost of our machines. So love those types of stories, and um, that's how we do what we do.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That kind of puts more into perspective, like the cycle that it goes through, or like the different steps, because it feels with everything today that you can just go online. And one thing that really stood out when you were speaking is this idea of like a partnership. And as a salesperson, you're not just selling the person something once, although that can happen, but you're making sure each step of the way that everyone's happy, and you're not moving forward until they are you're both happy on both ends. So I like that idea of the partnership, and that it's something that can grow. I could see that being a very rewarding aspect of your career.
It is, and I, it kind of just fell out of my mouth there, but partnerships turn into friendships as well. I think I've been being with this company for 13 years. I've had, these relationships have turned into friendships, which is really amazing. It's what they say, right? More time, you spend a lot of time, sometimes more time at work than you do with your family. And in a salesperson's life, those work people or time at work is with coworkers, yes, but it's also with customers, because you're visiting customers and or talking on the phone with customers. You really are on the phone all the time. So those relationships turned into friendships as well, because you spend so much time with them. So it is really really nice. Also, caution to everyone is to keep your nose clean, and because those relationships um, either turn into friendships or they could go the other way, as you know. So, reputation in the sales profession is really really important, and so you're really always trying to do the right thing and take the high road.
Well, let's take a step back and talk about how you actually got here, because my understanding was that you didn't start off in the food industry. You started somewhere else, and you weren't even in sales to begin with. You didn't have a business degree, it was engineering, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
So,
right.
can you walk us a little bit through your early career and just like how you ended up in this position? Because it's a pretty cool story.
Yes, thank you. I think it's pretty cool as well. It's definitely not something that out of school I decided. I didn't know that I was going to be here. That's for sure, or didn't have a goal for this type of position when I first started. So I think hopefully that helps some, because some that are maybe confused getting into the food industry, really there are a lot of options. And my career started out of school. I went to Humber College to be a mechanical engineering technologist, 3 year program, and I focused in drafting and design. So that's working on the computer and really drafting and making mechanical things, nuts and bolts, really designing and drawing nuts and bolts and pieces of equipment and things like that. Right out of school, just before I was done, actually, went to a company that made garbage compactors. So I always tell everybody I went from the garbage can into the kitchen to get into the food industry, because I really did. So for a couple of years there, I was drafting on the computer and designing garbage compactors. These large industrial garbage compactors that you see outside your grocery store that really just pack. under high pressure, high hydraulic pressure, all of the garbage into a container, just like you do in your kitchen. You squeeze that garbage
Okay.
bag down and you compress it and you compact it to get more stuff in it. And so that's where I started off for a few years. Um, and it was a small company, and I found myself supporting the salesperson because they were maybe not so good on the computer, or maybe it was a little bit faster on the computer and making quotations or documents or something like that. So that was really, I'd always been around salespeople for small and medium sized businesses, and not knowingly, I really didn't have a goal because I thought I was still a little too young to become a salesperson. So that definitely wasn't a goal yet. Moved into another company where I was supporting the salespeople a little bit more. By now, I'm in the food industry. Just by chance, got into the same role of drafting or designing for a food equipment manufacturer in the bakery industry. So now I'm in bakery, and I was kind of at the front office. So I saw people coming in, I saw customers coming in, I saw salespeople coming in trying to sell to us. And I admired some of these salespeople because some of them were really bad, some of them were really good. So, really kind of looked up to these people that could get through the front door and could get to the people, my boss or my boss's boss in the back. So one day my phone rings and a headhunter is looking for somebody, not me. And they said, "Well, if you know of anybody that wants to get into the sales profession, then please pass my number along." And I said, "Okay, great." I took the number along and I hung up the phone. And then probably 30 seconds later, I thought, "Well, hey, maybe I should try this." And that's what really led me in my first step in a sales role. I did call back to this headhunter, and he presented me to a company that was my real first outside sales role. And I think hopefully what you see now is what I had last when I was in front of this headhunter. So maybe saw some potential in me, and that's when I started my first sales job. And in doing that, it it was totally new to me. I had only observed, and it all looked either easy or terrifying. And um, just called as many salespeople as I could at the time because another saying I say is that you're not born to be a salesperson, or many don't go to school for sales. You're really going into a business or a marketing type education to get into sales. So spoke to as many salespeople as I could, read as many sales books as I could, and muddled my way through it for a few years and refined my skills. Did some actual training. There's lots of great sales training out there as well. And now um, being a sales manager for the past 3 years, I see young salespeople starting out, and it's pretty exciting. And um, trying to give them what I kind of didn't have because I muddled through it, and that's training. I think in any role, food, any career, I think you need to have continuous training and continuous education. So I really look for training, read books, do 1 day or 2 day seminars kind of thing, because to be good at your craft, you need to practice and you need to learn. So I think that's the secret to my success, always looking for training or seminars or things to just hone my skills.
Well, let's dive a little bit deeper into that because you did say training, and you've kind of said like more generally to improve your skills, but at the core, it's sales. I believe is just selling a service or product, but there's so much more to it. Like, what skills help you to be an effective salesperson? Like, what type of training would you? Let's talk about someone young going into this role. Like, what would you start them off with to try to improve and learn more about?
I think starting off, um, it's a conversation that you're really trying to sell something to somebody, and that person is trying to decipher whether this is for them. So the conversation with an untrained somebody going in and just trying to do this for the first time kind of could go in a million directions. And I think, for my personality at least, I think the more structure that you have, the better you'll succeed. And I think that's kind of across
Hmm.
a lot of professions. So if you have a formula, or if you have, to do this task, to do um, to make a food product, or to do anything, you kind of have an agenda or a task. So a guideline of sorts is kind of what you really want. So um, for the young salespeople would be, listen to the customer and identify the needs, then try to match those needs to your products to understand whether there is a possible solution here. There's qualifying the customer and making sure that the customer is able to buy at that time, has the budget, or has thought about it, or whether they do need to do some planning. And then once all of those are out of the way, then the actual closing part, or selling part, um, and that's making sure it's the right time to buy, and then closing the deal. So that high level, that's kind of what we're trying to find, or trying to remember when we have these meetings, because without an organized approach, it's really it's difficult. There's miscommunication. Sometimes the customer is not understanding what you're trying to tell them. Sometimes the customer is not ready to buy or doesn't have the budget. Sometimes the customer's needs are not met. So really, the sales training, a good sales training seminar or course, will have a formula and steps that you follow, and expand on those steps. That you have to build credibility in the relationship, and you have to make sure that the customer is able or ready to buy, and things like that. So I think a structured approach in a sales training is very important very early on. Or we've decided that our new hires always go through sales training, so everybody has and everybody on the team has gone through the sales training, and so everybody's really talking the same language, because there are many sales training systems out there, and we want to make sure that our salespeople, as well as myself as their superior, are talking the same language. So we know what stage that the sale is at. So we know that we've um, qualified the customer. So we know that just to be more successful. So we're all really speaking the same language.
That's really interesting to think that structure also plays a role. Like having, it's not per se having like a script that's word for word that you're going to say, but you think of only having more structure in like the sciences, or maybe like engineering, the technical fields. You follow through X, Y, and Z, and then you get this output. But to hear that it's in sales, like a job that I associate with being much more flexible, much more like on your feet, which I could imagine there's definitely still parts of that, but you still can't get away from the structure that you need to have, which I find really interesting.
Yeah, and I think that you'll have a certain level of success without a system, as with anything in life. But the more successful um, professionals, salespeople, performers have that system. Think about the next meeting that you have, or the next event that you do. You usually have an agenda and you have a guideline to stay on track, and that um, makes the meeting more successful, or the interaction more successful. Some you know some of it is mental and up in your head, but if you do have a system that you follow every day, for every type of meeting, because some meetings are different, then I think that will make it successful. And there are many times I've walked out of a meeting and said, "Oh my gosh, I totally forgot to ask about this, or we totally skipped this step," and that still happens. But if you start off with the right system, any system really, I think that's the key to success.
We talk about structure being something that you should learn earlier on in your career, like these are the structures to set up, but you've been more established in your career, and I know that education is very important to you, that you want to continuously learn, but is there any skills or topics that you're currently trying to learn and improve on as you're later on in the career?
Yes, for sure. Uh, in a new role, in this new management role, a lot of leadership type things. There are some courses at university that I'm doing right now for leadership and um, managing people and different personalities. I think that is huge. I think across all careers, dealing with problems as they arise, dealing with different types of personalities. I think one of the things that I've done the most is taken a couple of personality tests to see what my personality is like compared to my coworkers as well, and that's a DISC assessment. So the type of personality that you are. So I think um, whether you're communicating internally in an office to somebody in a different department or um, in front of somebody in at their business, knowing the type of personality type that you're communicating with could help a lot. So those types of things that I'm looking for now. I think there's a lot of miscommunication in organizations. My organizational behavior class at Ryerson, I always remember it. You know, the type of things and case studies that we've done from groupthink, which was kind of neat. And I think we're all in a workplace. Groupthink is often seen to just miscommunications. There's so many ways of communicating with somebody now. Text and a lot can be um, miscommunicated in text or lost in text. Emails can be written and taken differently, and then of course conversations without body language. You might hear something totally different on the phone when you're driving in the car than if you were in front of the person to have that body language. So those are things that I try to remember and try to teach as well. And then culture. I'm a big culture guy. Whenever I interview a new person, I'm looking for, and I explain the type of culture that I'm trying to build in the workplace that we're at. We've kind of nicknamed it. And I think uh, in the workplace, it's kind of like a team. I've been and my kids have been on played team sports, and I think that analogy or that knowing that as part of a team, everybody's got to work as hard as possible for the good of the team. I think in the workplace that translates to culture, and we want to have as good a culture as we can. And I always try to remind people that if our culture is good, that's great. And if our culture is better than our competitors, then that will help as well.
Let's hear a word from our sponsor and partner of this podcast, Careers Now. Just like Rafal is helping food businesses find the right processing solutions, Careers Now is helping job seekers connect with top employers in Ontario's food and beverage processing industry. By signing up for a free Careers Now account, you'll gain access to job opportunities, virtual job fairs, mentorship sessions, and industry-focused skills training. I highly recommend checking out their free Job Ready Skills training, which is a great way to build industry knowledge and stand out to potential employers. With 15 online self-paced courses available in multiple languages, it is an easy and accessible way to gain a competitive edge. Whether you're looking to start your career or take it to the next level, Careers Now has the tools to help you succeed. All right, let's get back into the show. I like that. Oh, though you saying that you summed it up quite simply, but like with the personality types, like there's so much to learn when it comes to those types of things, because just saying that it's going to work for this personality type, that it won't, and you have to like learn about how to identify if a person is like that, and you might make mistakes, you might communicate. And then as well, as you're mentioning with text, video, audio, all those things make such a difference. And even society's changed in terms of even how you speak. So what something might be seen as acceptable then is not acceptable now, or the tone that you use, or like changing, like putting a ... to one person might mean something totally different. So always having to stay on your toes, like that is a lot of things to learn. And I can see why that's an ongoing process for you.
For sure. And things are going to go bad, and you're going to see the plane crashing and burning during the conversation. And what I coach people with is just to say, hey, you know what? I think I really kind of screwed that up, or that's not what I meant. Can we restart? And that's part of just really, I think it really humanizes the conversation. It tells the other person, and then, you acknowledge that this is not going the way that you want, and you kind of reset. And I think it's a very powerful thing that I've used many times. And so, that honest, it's really a conversation between people. And if you can feel it going south on a text, then say, you know what, let's pick up the phone and talk to each other. Or if there's some problem with a customer, a situation, some bad luck, then let's hop in the car and go there and talk to them and meet face to face. So it's nice sometimes to have that next level that you can just take the conversation to. And honesty is always the best policy. You get to the solution faster, and it's the best way to conduct yourself in business.
Yeah, and I guess as well, it also shows that you're actually listening to the conversation and you're being present and you're identifying that things aren't working and you're not just passively, going through the motions, that you're recognizing what is happening. And I guess that honesty would be actually a customer or just even like a family member, if you did it to them, could appreciate, because they're seeing you're taking that effort and just being like, whoa, this isn't working. Let's restart. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm glad, and hopefully, somebody gets out of this for sure, because it's. I think it comes with a little bit of maturity, but the more that you can see it, and the more that you can realize that that's works, I think, yeah, it could be great in business, in family, and in conversations with strangers.
Hmm. I think culture is such an important part about, we talk about culture in school, we talk about culture in like my own lab, we try to improve it. But I remember you were really excited. Again, I go back to this pre talk because, like, if you're listening right now, we talked a lot prior to this podcast episode, but you talked about the Handman way. Like, and you sounded really excited about that. Why don't you tell me about that and like how it relates to culture?
Yeah, I think in my stage of my career now, because I've gone through sales and now have the opportunity to lead a team. Uh, Really, something that came out a couple of years ago. We were at a bar talking about something, about the day, and we talked about how we always try to do the right thing, and we need to do the right thing in this situation. And out of somebody's mouth came the phrase "the Handtman way," and it really kind of stuck. And that's something that, yeah, I get really excited about. We try to put it in as much of our presentation material as we can. Try to talk to people about it as I've spoken to you about it. But we work for a company, Mr. Handtman. They're still a Handtman family, and we tried to convey to customers and suppliers and competitors and our team members that to try to do the right thing, to take the high road as much as possible, to do it the right way, and that's what we call the Handtman way. And I think that helps us bring this kind of motto together, bring the team together, and reminds us when it might be a little bit cheaper or a little bit easier or a little bit faster to do it a different way. But I think it really helps galvanize people and the team if we call it the Handtman way, and we try to remind each other. I definitely try to remind everybody as much as I can about this, and I'm really proud of it.
Would you be able to provide like an example maybe of we talk about storytelling, so there must be, a story that maybe you want to share with us that really exemplified that you did that, or someone
Yeah,
on your team?
for sure, for sure. Yeah, definitely. It's more of a story of a customer reminding me of it, which I think hopefully is even more unique. Um, this long time relationship type customer that I've described um, visited this customer in the beginning. He was working almost out of his garage. It was a pet food customer, and uh, kept on visiting him. He wasn't quite ready to buy our equipment, and I explained to him that our equipment will solve his problem. All of the things and all of that a good salesperson should do is say, "Look, this is our equipment. It's really good. It's leading class. It's going to solve your problem. and we're going to be there for the relationship after the fact. Plus, we have something called the Handtman Way, and I described to him exactly what I thought the Handtman Way was in my mind. That we were going to have this relationship for a long time. We were always going to do the right thing, no matter the cost or the time that it takes to do it. Then finally came time where this customer grew and was ready to purchase. It really was a slow burn and a long time. And a couple of years later, was finally able to sell to this customer, and he's bought his first machine. Since then, he's really grown a lot and has 6 or 7 or 8 machines. So, a very good business. And sitting down in front of him and just reflecting on it a couple of years after the fact, I said, thank you for choosing us. We've had such a great relationship and a long relationship. What was it, and could you think of anything that I did right or wrong, and how did we get to this point? And he described to me. He said, we knew that the equipment was great. We knew that we really liked you, but the thing that kind of we remembered coming out of that meeting was the Handtman Way. So very proud of that as well.
What a cool moment to have, like the client say something and then seeing that relationship build. And you said a slow burn, whew, years to build
Hmm.
up that. That's pretty impressive.
Yes, love telling that story. Thank you.
And I'm just going to shift the conversation because there's one when we did our little pre-conversation when we were talking on the phone the last time. One of the things that you talked about is like where you work, and then the opportunities for co-op students and the opportunities for students that are, newly graduated coming to the company. A student might not even realize about what opportunities there are at an adjacent company to the food industry. We promote this podcast, we talk about all the different food jobs, but coming into the equipment side, it might be a little bit more of a mystery. Now, we know that there's obviously sales that are happening there, but tell me about your company and like the roles that are available for students, in their co-op or like when they're coming right out of the school.
Yeah, that's actually very exciting because we are located in Waterloo, so we've got the University of Waterloo that's really close to us, and this is my first job in my career that we've actually pulled some co-op students in to help us. I think it's great. There are some government grants to help pay for that wage, um, and the only downside is you only have the student for a little while, but we've had students come back. So we our equipment. Portions food or mixes food or does things to food. So we have a department in our company, which is the applications department. And that applications department usually has people in it that have food science backgrounds, um, and have been in laboratories and know everything from protein extraction to other things that food does, and we really benefit from that. So our application department does demonstrations and starts up and commissions these machines as well. So we always need help in that. We'll bring a customer in for a customer demo. So we'll prepare the equipment before the customer gets to our location. We'll have brought in or shipped in some of their food or something similar to their food that we'd like to show them. Maybe done a pre-test on our machine to make sure that our machine can do it and tune it up and tune it precisely to the food. And then we'll have the customer come in. We'll do the whole tour of our facility and tell them about our company. And then we'll get into our lab. It's a fully washed down facility where we've got um, things like an oven, a Rational combi oven, cold storage, um, and refrigerated as well if we need to. And we'll demo this equipment on our this food on our equipment. So these students are helping us take measurements that ultimately lead to a report, help us hands on by loading the machine or making some adjustments on it. And then at the end of the day, if it's a successful test and the customer likes what our machines are outputting, then they take those samples back, take it to their team, and just do some testing on it and some sensory on it. And our students would help us finalize those reports for and keep those reports for both us and for the customers. So we know that the conditions to as accurate as we can get them, that the test was successful, and that we know for the future. So when we look in a couple of years from now, if we can do this type of food again in a different industry or in a different company, then we'll look back on this test and see how it was that we were successfully able to do it. So those types of people need to be food science oriented and are a really big help, because sometimes that extra helping hands to either physically or to write that report really helps. And helps, like I said, both our business and the customers that we're trying to impress.
Cool. That is, see, I never would have thought about having, I mean, it makes sense, but the opportunity for a food science student to go in and like do what you're saying, like, I bet that would be such a unique experience, especially even compared to their peers, they go into food processing. But again, to see that equipment, see how that interplay, you, with a lot of food science degrees, you get practice in the pilot plant, but to actually see that like bigger scale, that that's really cool.
And just to add to it, I think that in a food plant, very often you're doing the same thing. There's definitely a
Mhm.
research and development end of it, which would be, the more exciting part, I think, in my eyes, anyways, in that. And I feel that what we're doing sometimes is doing the same thing and just showing the customer the same thing that we've done and what our machines do. But a lot of times we're doing things that we've never have never been done before on our machines, and that's, I think, the exciting part. Will it work in our equipment? And if it doesn't, then what can we do to try to make it work? Do we need to adjust the formulation a little bit? Do we need to change something about our machine? So that part is really exciting. It's leading edge. It's a lot of times something that others have not done, and it's truly innovative.
And it gets that like mind thinking about the processing side, and they work hand in hand together.
Definitely.
And then, to finish the episode off, I mean, we talked about a lot of different things. We talked about your career, we've talked about how the equipment comes in, we've talked about the skills that are important into sales. But, if we could summarize everything and we talk about advice, we talk about lessons, it's always my favorite way to end an episode. So let's talk about if a student or young professional was interested in going to food processing or the equipment sales area, or maybe you want to give general advice. What advice would you give those who are listening today?
I think it's definitely to work as hard as you can, um, and to know that in a food science industry, if that's your path, to be as good at it as you can be, to become the expert. And in the food industry, that can branch out to anything. You can stay and be in the applications department or working with food or working in food factories, but you can also branch out into going to the suppliers, going to work for suppliers to the industry, for technological companies. We're a tech company, or a food equipment company, but we're always in need of people with a food science background to know um, what we can do to the food that goes through our machines. And the more in the food industry, the more you know about food as a salesperson, as a service person, as a manager or a leader, the better you are, because food is very diverse. There's so many types of it, especially in Canada, and so many more. So that food science background is always going to serve you well, and you definitely don't think you're going to end up in the same spot that you started, for sure, after 20 years, 30 years.
Well, I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, Raffle, for taking the time to come on the show, talking about what you do. I've learned, again, my knowledge of the sales world has increased, and it's not quite what I thought it was. So this has been a little bit eye opening for me. So thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for sharing what you do.
Thank you very much, Veronica. This was a blast. Loved it.